our band, was like a black R&B band from Calgary, and we got kicked out of Calgary, so we we ended up by the mayor. It's a good story. We ended up in Vancouver, and then we played in Vancouver. Got quite popular there, but our singer, Tommy Milton, he always wanted to go down south where the fame and fortune was. And so we literally snuck into the States. Every time we went down there, we would hit the Seattle border, or the Vancouver border, and they'd say, how long where are you going? And we'd say, Seattle. How long are you going to be there? A couple of days. And we'd have a trailer full of our belongings and our equipment. And then we'd come back like a year later. Where you been? Seattle. How long you been down there? A couple of days. No problem. And that went on because, back in the day, you didn't have that Homeland Security or anything, And then we did that a few times. And then we found a singer in San Francisco and a job. We played one night a week at Big Al's, topless joint. And that's where we met Bobby Taylor, who ended up being one of Motown's biggest stars. And then Bobby was a part of the equation because then Bobby, then we went back to Vancouver. We played that one night a week as long as we could. And when that gig fell out, we had to go back to Vancouver to play in a club that we had. And we went back to Vancouver, and our drummer and our singer got in a big fight on the way home. And it got close to fisticuffs, but the drummer ended up quitting, and he joined another band called the Three Dog Night. And so Floyd, he went on to big fame and fortune. And so we needed a drummer, so we phoned Bobby Taylor. And Bobby Taylor said, hey, man, I can drum. I'll be your drummer. And right away I thought, this guy sings better than Marvin Gaye. That's how good he was. And he wants to play drums? I said, sure. The singer, our singer, Tommy Milton, he wasn't too happy because he knew he could see the writings on the wall. So anyway, Bobby comes up, takes over Tommy's job. Tommy goes on to form another band, and I end up with Bobby. And then we get discovered by Motown. And so then now we're going down to Detroit to record, but still illegally. I mean, they still didn't have, in fact, no one knew what a green card was in Motown. And then our band, which consisted a lot of a band from Toronto called the Good Shepherds, and they ended up going home for Christmas in Detroit, and then coming across back to the border. They asked him, what are you doing in Detroit? And they said, oh, we're recording for Motown. And they said, oh, great, can we see your papers, your work permit? We don't have a work permit. And where's the rest of the band? And of course, they outed us right away. And as a result, it's called voluntary departure. And so they said, get the hell out of here. So we had to go back. We moved to Windsor. And it was a lucky move because then Barry Gordy found out about it, and he loved the group. And so he got my green card and my wife's green card, my first wife's green card. And then I was legal. And at the same time, I was being legal, but in order to get a green card, I had to register for the draft. And so which I did, I wasn't afraid of going over to fight in the war because I had been an Army cadet, so I knew all about war. And but as it turned out, the fact that I was willing to go, they didn't want me. So I got 4X'd out, just get out of here. In the meantime, Cheech, they wanted to draft his ass. And so he went up to Calgary. And he ended up in the same neighborhood in Calgary that I grew up in. And it was ordained. And so Motown, after I got my green card, we ended up playing a few gigs. We played in England, and Jimi Hendrix heard about us, came and sat in with us. It was one of the highlights of our life. And then we went back to Chicago to play a gig with a group called the Jackson 5. and Johnny. And Bobby Taylor and I, we heard the group, and we flipped. They were so good. The little guy, little Michael, he was exceptional. So then we took the Jackson Five. They stayed with Bobby in Detroit, and then we went to Berry Gordy, or Bobby did, and told Barry, we got this group, you got to hear. And it took them a month before they heard him. And then they, of course, they saw the genius and they signed Motown. And Joe Jackson brought me the contract because I was the only white guy that he knew that looked like a lawyer, you know. And so he handed me the contract. He said, Tommy, what do you think? And I looked at the contract. It was a standard thing, you know, and I said, 7 years. Yeah, you know, Motown's good. It'll put the guys through school. So they did. And next thing I know, the Jackson 5 took off. And then Bobby left the group to produce them. He produced their first album. And then, and so I was without a group. Oh, and I got fired. I got fired from my group because I had a girlfriend. I was married, but I also had a girl. I'm a musician. What can I say? You know, and I had a girlfriend from Vancouver. She was like a neighbor that somehow got pregnant, and she was with me everywhere I went. And when I got fired from a gig, and I had her in the motel. No, I went back to Detroit. I left her in the motel at the gig, and I had to leave. And the reason I got fired was because I had to leave the gig in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, to go back to Windsor to get my green card. And I had to be there in person. And so I told the road manager, you know, my story, and he said, she said, Chris Clark says, if you leave the gig, you're fired. And I said, but I need this green card, you know, you don't understand. And she said, well, that's the deal. And so I said, well, whatever, I have to do the green card. So I went back, got my green card, and then I'm coming back. I came back. No, in Motown, they told me I was fired in Detroit. But I said, I got all my equipment, plus my girlfriend and a baby in the motel. So I had to fly back, and I flew back, and I got my guitar, and I went to the gig, you know, as if I wasn't fired. But sure enough, they told me, you know, you're fired. And that was the turning point in my career, because the band could have saved me. The band could have said, if he's fired, then I'm fired. But every one of those guys, every one of those Canadians that I handpicked, brought to Detroit, give them a gig, they all looked away. They had turned their head. Every one of them, the bass player, the drummer, the piano player, every one of them. And they just threw me under the car. But it was ordained. And so I went back to the motel, and I told my now wife, Shelby, she says, oh, you're home early. I says, I just got fired. And she goes, oh, that's good, honey, come to bed. And it was what I wanted to hear, you know. She said, the band sucked anyway, so come to bed. And then we went back to Detroit, no job. We went to a movie, saw a movie called I Love You, Alice B. Toklas with Peter Sellers. And it was about California, Venice. And we're sitting in cold-ass Detroit. It's rain. It's kind of rain, snow, sleet, you know, that typical shitty weather. And I'm looking at the movie thinking, let's go to California. And so I figured out a way to get to California by driving it was at the time you could drive some rich guy's car back to their summer home, you know. So that's what I did. I found a drive-away thing, and I got a guy's car, and we drove back.